The test review for Unit 3, chapters 7, 8, and 11. You may have to turn the sound down. I turned it pretty high. I wasn't sure how much you would get. So, all right, chapter 7. I hope you can see the board. I've underlined some things that you can also underline. And let's go down to Roosevelt. Remember, before Roosevelt was president, then they would give the president the questions beforehand, but Roosevelt held weekly meetings, press conferences, and where he would not ask for the question ahead of time. And then the press would trust the government, and the government would give them articles, and they would just print them as is. But then the Vietnam War and the Watergate made the press a little suspicious that the government was not telling the truth always, and this started the investigative journalism, where they would see if the government was telling the truth, they'd investigate it. And then one of the big things around that time, a 1960 Kennedy-Nixon debate, what that proved was that the people who listened to it on the radio, 80% said Nixon won. Those who watched on TV said 80% said that Kennedy won, which shows the power of the TV would be how well you come across, not necessarily always what you say. And read through some of this. The government also sends up what is called trial balloons. They will leak a story, and then they will see how well the public accepts it. They can always come back and deny it. Now, there's always been a suspicion that the media was had a liberal bias, which is true in their own survey. 87% said they were Democrats. Of course, that does not mean that they're biased. It just means that that's their leaning. And policy was set by the government. Is anything that the government can solve, then that's their agenda. They try to solve the problems that are brought up in government. And I'm trying to read a little bit ahead of time here. Okay, let's go by. I'll try to be a little bit slower. And let's go to Chapter 8, which most of the questions on this test will be on Chapter 8, and probably most on your AP test. We know that the definition of political parties are people gathered together of the same cause, and they would like to control the government by finding and electing people to office. This is a linkage. One of your examples of a linkage would be the political parties link you to the government. The main task of the political parties is to elect their candidates to office, and they also try to set a positive image and, of course, control the government when they win. Now, today, most people identify themselves as independents based on Republican Democrats. Actually, they're more independents than are Democrats and are Republicans. Now, the political party has a three-headed political giant, the party of the electorate. That those are the people who actually identify themselves as one party or the other. The party in power, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and of course the party in the government. And actually, our government is ran by political parties. Now, the rational choice theory believes that a political party will win at all costs. They will not go by their beliefs. They will do anything to win an election. And that's their theory. Whether it's true or not, we don't know. Party identification is still the best way to know how people are going to vote. Split ticket voting is when you vote for some Republicans, some Democrats. And the media also has added to the weakness of the political party. We said that there's more independence, and the press has emphasized the independence, so they have weakened the political parties. There are basically three types of primaries. The closed primary, you must register ahead of time and say, I want to vote in the Democrat or Republican primary, and then you can only vote for Republicans or Democrats. The open primary, you still can only vote for Republicans or all Democrats, but you do not have to register ahead of time. And then the blanket primary, there are Republicans and Democrats, and you can vote for, you can split your ticket on that. But the majority of states use closed because it stops what is called rating, so you cannot vote in the Republicans and the Democrat primary. We talked about the party organization. If there is a national presidential race, then the National Convention controls the parties. The 3 years where there is not a presidential base, the National Committee controls the party, and the national chairman makes the day-to-day decisions for the party. Now, coalition, remember Roosevelt got a coalition with a lot of different parties to get elected. Today, there are a lot of different people get together to defeat or gain or to elect a candidate. A lot of them got together to defeat a Supreme Court nominee. And we're going to the historical part of parties. Remember, we said that parties run in systems where one party will control for 20 years, 30 years, and then another party. A lot of times this happens at a crucial election that will turn one party in control for a long time. Party realignment happens during that time. That means that the people who used to vote Democratic, like in the South before the Civil War, well, then they switched over and started voting Republican. The Civil War and the Great Depression is a current example of a big change, and now we have a divided president, currently have a divided government. And you can look at some of this. We talked about divided government. That means that the president is one party and all a part of the Congress is another party. Winner take all. That means that talking about the presidential race, you must win a majority of the popular vote in a state before you can get any electoral votes, and you get them all. You get all electoral votes, except for the states of Maine and Nebraska. They go on percentages. And that's one of the reasons a third party cannot win, because a third party cannot get a majority of enough states' popular vote. A large amount of the political coverage of the newspapers is day-to-day coverage. That just means that they don't look at big issues. They're saying, you know, that this candidate is in this state and this candidate's in that state. They can't follow them around. All right, last thing, Chapter 11. Interest groups are people that are interested in the same policy or the same goals, but they do not want to run candidates. They just would like to get their ideas adopted. And let's go to some definitions. Freeloaders is a problem the unions have, and like in the South, when there's a right to work, meaning you don't have to join a union, so the union can go out on strike and give them a raise. That means everybody gets a raise, not just the union. So why would you want to be a union member and pay all those dues? So that's the problem that unions have. It's called free rider problem. The Olson laws of large groups. The larger group is the less that one candidate one person can get served. It's also can cause a more serious problem of the freeloader because, of course, your percentages are higher. All right, and let's go to, let's see, the lobbyists. Now, not everyone in an interest group can go to Washington and talk, so they hire one person to go to Washington and represent the interest group. And the best thing they do to help the congressman is to give them information, charts, graphs, surveys, and so on. Now we'll go back to political action committees. That's just a group of people who their only purpose they have is to raise money. The Supreme Court case last year said that the labor unions and businesses, you cannot deny them the right to raise money and to spend it on campaigns. They just cannot give it to the candidate. Okay, labor unions are on the increase where most other unions are on the decrease, and this is mainly talking about PACs. All right. And then you will have 10 most missed on the last test. So the Maryland case about, that set up implied powers will be on there. You have to find an example of checks and balances, the weaknesses of the Ark and the Federation, which group is more politically active, like more education, richer, non-minorities, union members, married people. All of those are more politically active than other groups. After the 26th Amendment was passed, how did that affect the voter turnout for that age group? Know the difference in initiative and referendum? Firstly, we talked about that, and then there's the constitutional powers of the president. We didn't study that, but of course you can look that up. He has the power he's in charge of the military. He can appoint people. He can approve federal judges and so on. So that should be on your test. Hopefully this has helped. And I'm going to go cut it off. And may the force be with you.